Welcome to this edition of the Suitcase Sessions Podcast. I'm your host, Bob Bowman, and today I'm sitting with Dean Dostal, though in two different states. We are virtual here on the podcast today, but Dean lives in Custer, Michigan. I'm here in St. Louis, but Dean builds under the Cigar Box Guitars label, and he's a builder, musician, and a performing recording artist in his own right. So with that, Dean, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here, Bob. Pleasure to be with you.
So great to have you. Dean, you and I talked for a few minutes before we hit the record button, and there's any number of subjects we could talk about today. But I thought maybe we'd focus on a couple that we had agreed upon just for the benefit of our viewers on YouTube channel and or the listeners who go to Spotify and iTunes or what have you. But let's start with as a builder. If those folks who haven't seen you on some of the private social media pages you and I are connected on, they might not know much more than the fact that I just referred to you as a builder. But you build Cigar Box Guitars. Do you want to talk about the types of builds you do and what your favorite type of build is? Or
Sure, absolutely. So,
sure.
Number one, thank you for sharing this evening with me. This is fun. But probably my favorite builds have been the simplest, the 3-string. I love to make the electric with the ghosted pickup, which at this point I've been using MGBs, mini box pickups or humbuckers or mini box bucker, or however they have the term. But I use those almost exclusively, not completely, but on all the electrics. And I've just gotten a lot of really good feedback on the sound and the timbre of the guitars. So nice. I really enjoy doing that. I like them. I like doing them, fairly simple. I'm not a great woodworker. I enjoy working with wood. I've made some homemade bows, like a recurve. Those types of things. So I'm not completely a neophyte with it, but some of the close tolerances and cutting and some of the finer things that I've seen, that are some absolute artists that are building cigar box guitars. And actually one of those, two of the guys that got me involved, that got me started, one was Jesse Thomas, the other was Bert Philbrick. They're both artists in their own right and building. And excellent human beings, because came right alongside when I was very green and I said, I don't even know where to start. They said, here's where you start. This is how you start. And it was great. Really got me going. So that's kind of where I've come to with it anyway.
So you like 3-string builds and simple builds with, maybe standard micro pup you mentioned from MGB, or the like. But I heard a couple of things that interested me. You said you're not a woodworker, though you've built recurve bows.
Yeah.
That's
just patience, that they all the bows that I've done have been bamboo backed. So you can put them in a reflex deflex design. You do that by just putting the pressure down on the wood once you get it down to the shape you want. And I haven't done a self bow where you actually, and I'm going to throw out a bunch of terms, and sorry if I go through them too quick. I haven't done a bow where you scrape down to one growth ring all the way down that stave like it should be. I tend to taper them in really nice. And then on the back or the front side, you put a piece of bamboo that's got the nodes at 12 to 16 inches anywhere in there. It's a super dynamic bow. So it's not hard. It's just takes a little bit of patience. It doesn't take that exacting. Well, you're a builder, and some of the stuff that they end up having to do to get something so the intonation's correct, or you start dealing with 30 seconds of an inch on something inside these guitars in a little area that you can't get to. That gets more difficult for me to keep my patience. So I'd rather just drill a hole and get going.
I've talked to so many builders with similar thoughts, and all of us, I think, have our favorite part of a build
Yeah.
and things that we like least about a build. It sounds like those tight tolerances might not be your favorite part of it.
I don't think a lot of people would call me a detail-oriented person. I'm a very big picture guy. I I like to lead the charge. I like to get going. I love playing. If you were to ask me what my favorite part of building a guitar is,
Yeah.
as soon as I'm done and I can get it to hold tune and I can sing a song through it, and that is my absolute favorite part. Just to see that thing come alive like that.
Yeah. Now I can appreciate that. In fact, my opening segue or introduction to Cigar Box Guitars was a similar story. You said Jesse and Bert introduced
Yeah.
you to it, and that you like playing. Well, I took my first cigar box guitar to the St. Louis Cigar Box Guitar Club and met Russ Wellington, who I think you know too.
I do. Yep.
But Russ looked at me and said, Bob, there's two kind of people in this hobby or whatever you want to call it. He said there's woodworkers and nuts and bolts guys. He said, nuts and bolts guys, we don't care what it looks like. We just want it to be able to play right. Better sound good when we play it.
That's me.
And he looked at me and he said, you're a woodworker, aren't you? Yeah, and he and I both had our Navy hats on, so we hit it off right away on a couple different levels. But I appreciated the open criticism, but constructive, right? Because immediately he says, dude, you need to change this scale length. This isn't right. This bridge is yours isn't in the right spot. He said, you can't play this. Look how high that action is, even for a slider.
Yeah. You can't. The wood's not even vibrating on the top.
Hey, listen, I'm not laughing. Here's that slider. This is my first one.
Hey, that's not bad. That's what.
And this is in the wrong spot. He had me move it. I keep it handy for occasions where I need to be humble.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I've got my fiance for that.
So the playing is your favorite part, and I think it's interesting because though you're telling me, us who are listening, that you're not so much into like the super detail of it, as long as you can play it right. Yet I've seen, despite you saying 3-stringers are what you primarily do, I've seen your 6-string builds, and then heard you play those, and they are both great sounding for sure, but they look fantastic. So how do you explain that away, Dean?
Well, it's funny because I swore when I started this, and I mean this, it wasn't until just a few months ago, I said I will never make a 6-string CBG, because if I'm going to play 6 strings and I want to electrify it, I have 3 Telecasters and a Strat, and I've got my Les Paul. I don't need any. Yeah, I've got them now, and I really enjoy them. I really enjoy it, and they are a lot of fun, but it's a little exacting. And
yeah,
I do know that with each build, I'm learning so much that it just takes me to the next build where I'm like, oh, I got to try this. Like my last 6-string, I loved it. I loved the sonic timbre of that box, which was made out of poplar, and I had made it, but it was 3.5 inches deep. Well, you start playing that for a while, and it's like your hands out here, and it was a little rough. I'd like to take that down to about 2.5, I think, for the body size. Not quite so, but I wouldn't. But I'd love to keep that depth of character that it had in the timbre of the guitar. So, and I hope that's all just. I was talking to a friend of mine from Memphis today, and he was like, it's that cavity though, Dean. You can't go messing with too much with that if that's the sound you're looking for. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'll try it. But
it is tough. I'm finishing up an separate episode on my favorite box, so I get it. I totally get it relative to the sound, and what makes it my favorite box is the sound that comes out of it primarily.
It
But
it is, and that AVO that I used for my first six stringer,
mhm,
that one I got very fortunate. I think that one
mm.
had some mojo in the box itself, and that's the one I was keeping for myself. So um, I really enjoy playing that. So actually,
So
when we're down at that festival
mhm,
for Travis Bolin in Georgia, I know that I'm going to play that quite a bit because it's
awesome.
I'll do my three string too, but it'll be the three and the six all that I'll bring with me and cover most of my originals with that.
So you mentioned the fact that you have a box that you made your six stringer out of that
Mm-hmm.
is maybe a little too deep, but you love the timbre that it produces. What about what box outside of that is your favorite box to build with in general?
Hmm. I really love, and I shouldn't probably, but I love the Arturo Fuentes, and I've got
Yeah.
three of them, and that was my first real foray into it. I did an Arturo Fuente box, and I just fell in love with it. I love the sound of it, and I've got one that's acoustic, and I've got two that are electrified or electric acoustic,
Hmm.
and I know it's cardboard. I know it's not what I should be looking for, but man, they sound good, and they just have that feel when you're playing it like you should be sitting on the back porch on a foggy morning and drinking your coffee and having a good day. You know, so
Are,
it's
are
just
are the Arturo Fuente boxes you're using the ones that are fully paper covered then?
yes, yep,
Okay, got it.
yep.
Yeah.
But
Well, interesting. And all of these things we're talking about now as a builder, of course, factor in, whether we're taking our time or moving fast. You're trying to get to the playing, and
yes,
and so let's talk about that for a minute. I found out something interesting about you, just to be honest, doing some intel work, I guess.
oh, there we
I was
go.
doing some cyber stalking at Dean before we
Yes,
called, right? But I learned that you went to school for music and at Idaho University, right?
yep. University of Idaho, the
University of
Vandals.
Idaho, sorry. And
Yep,
so
no, that's fine.
I'm fascinated with that because, having heard you play, I want to talk about that a little bit.
Hmm.
What made you want to go to school for music?
Well, I had the good fortune when I grew up. I grew up in Lafayette, Indiana. My dad taught at Purdue University for 16 years. Down the street from us uh, was my best friend, Scott Kissinger. Well, his dad is Bill Kissinger, who at the time, and I'm going to have the title wrong because I was a kid, but I'm going to call him the assistant director of bands for Purdue University. I
Hmm.
know that he did most of the marching band work and those types of things, and he was very involved in every concert that came in and went out. But Bill, who didn't have to, never had to, spent an inordinate amount of time explaining to me that words aren't necessarily needed in music, but emotion is. And
Hmm.
he would put on overtures. I had the good fortune of going on some family trips with them just because we were good friends. And he would say, "Now listen, you hear that bass drum, hear that timpani coming in, hear that coming in. That's the man going to the gallows. Has nothing to do with what you think it does. It's about this other movement." And it really struck me that it's the emotion and the passion that I look for in orchestral music. I was a low
Hmm.
brass major, played euphonium. It really was, music was my only saving grace when I was a kid. Just didn't have anything else to hang my hat on. House was kind of a broken home. Not terrible, nothing horrible, just is what it is. And it gave me my touchstone, and it still is, to be really honest with you. If I need to get comfortable, I'm going to grab my guitar, or I might just go in the cornfield and start singing. I don't know, but singing is more to me uh, my instrument of choice than guitar playing. I would rather sing. because it just works for me. So it helps me get those things out that I want to.
So your introduction to music in school with low brass, in this case euphonium,
Mm-hmm.
and then the music appreciation provided you by that friend's dad
Yep.
led you to want to take music as a major.
Yeah, I got out. We moved to Washington State my junior year, and I was not what we call a good student.
Mm-hmm.
So going to college was really not my windshield anywhere. But I met up with the uh, low brass instructor there at University of Idaho. He gave me an audition. He said, if you school had already started, he said, if you'll go pack your bags and come to class tomorrow morning, I'll go get you into the university and give you a scholarship. So they did that. And I was on academic probation, to be sure, but made it a couple years until I fell in love and did all that kind of stuff. And then I joined the military. So um,
What
it was
branch did you join?
Air Force.
Air
I didn't
Force.
know
Got it.
are there other branches? I didn't know there was other branches out there. We cover the world, and
Right.
then got boats. They stay on the water. That's what's that?
Right.
2/3. We got everything.
Right.
I'm just, just
Yeah.
mess with you.
No, that's great. Other people might not understand that inter-service rivalry, but as a Navy retiree, I used to tell everybody. They'd come to me, Master Chief, my son wants to go in the military. What service should he go into, you think? I mean, here I am, a Navy Master Chief, and they're asking me that question, and I just look at them and say, well, I don't know, what's his goals? And they'd say, well, he wants to get a good degree. And I said, well, we don't even have to go any further. The answer to your question is the Air Force. They say, well, what do you mean the Air Force? You're a Navy Master Chief. Why aren't you telling me the Navy? I'd say, well, that's a fact that if you want to get a good education and you want to stay in one base forever and homestead somewhere, and you'd like to have an instant rack of ribbons as a E3, you join the Air Force. Plus the golf courses are fantastic.
They are. It's where I took up golf. I had to.
Yeah.
But you know what? I saw the
they do
Army
all that
guys
stuff
come
before
to
they
our
design
chow
the
hall,
base.
though. It was our chow
Yeah.
hall that everybody came to.
Well, I tell you what, when I joined the Navy, my first school was at Lowry Air Force Base, at the time
Lowry.
world's largest training command. It's no longer there, but we went to the quote enlisted dining facility, which we and the Navy have chow halls where Navy mess specialists are the cooks. I said to my friend, hey, let's go try out this enlisted dining facility. And we did. And there wasn't a military person in there. It was all contractors. The food was fantastic. They were serving us food and bringing it to the table. And then, I kid you not, this was like our first, we got there on a weekend to check in for our initial schooling. And so we went to this enlisted dining facility and we got done, and this contractor for the Air Force came over and said, would you like additional donuts? They just pulled some donuts out of the bakery. And we looked at each other and we both said, yes, we would.
Why, yes, we would.
And so we're sitting there with some fresh donuts at this enlisted dining facility. Yep. And it was at that point we questioned some of our decision-making process because we may have missed out.
I never complain about the Air Force. I don't do it. So
awesome. How long did you serve?
10 years and 1 day. Went in October 9th of 84 and I got out October 9th of 94. So
wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Should have stayed in. Well, that's one that got away from me a little bit.
Yeah, and that's a tough one at 10-year mark, because that's the time to make that decision, by the way, for anybody. But
yeah,
that extra day threw you into the, well, I guess I'm staying.
I should have. I look back on that and I'm like, man, that was a lot of pride involved in that. You get to be an E6. Well, I had my line numbered E6, and
Yeah.
It's just got all these. Now they're up to captains. They must have got past captain. Majors and LCs. They all pretty much knew what they were doing, but it got old. Being
Yeah.
hey, how much you making? And I'm the one running this. I don't get it. But that's how it is. That's the way it goes. So
Yeah. I hear you. Well, and I know that was a quick diversion for personal interest, but all that was about the time you left school a couple years in,
yeah,
playing the euphonium, I suppose, at the university that you decided to join the Air Force, huh?
yeah. So and that's really uh, a lot of my musical influence had come already. Was kind of formed by then. I loved the instrumental music, orchestral music, symphonies. I prefer things that are very, very passionate, emotion filled, moving type of songs rather than things that are more a labor of love to listen to. But
I know that's why I like you. Then I'm a big fan of Motown because of the passion.
yep,
I like the blues because of the passion,
me too.
and I like the lyrics more than I like the music. And I was a solid third chair trumpet for about 12 years, an instrumental, orchestral, and I played a French horn in one Christmas program because I could hit those low notes. And anyway, I am really appreciating, I think, on a personal level, the fact that that was your path.
Yeah, it
One of
was.
my favorite field trips in grade school and middle school. We didn't go in high school, but was to Powell Symphony Hall downtown St. Louis to see the St. Louis Symphony. For the same reason you enjoyed it, that's what we all loved about it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I as a singer now, and that's why I don't consider myself a guitar player more than I'm more of a singer.
Hmm.
But can't believe with it without using words how much a person can make you move with music. How they can
Yeah.
actually pierce, and not to get religious, but pierce your soul a little bit. There's a reason why kings asked other people to come and play that instrument so they could calm down. And
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing gift that we were given. So I know I'm very thankful for that. The music as a whole.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's a great insight. And you know, when you talked about your musical influences, you focused on the orchestral side because you liked the music. But as a lyricist, do you have any musicians or artists or bands that you feel influence you in your writing and performing now?
Oh, I'd probably be lying. I mean, obviously the old standbys for country. I'll always be there. Waylon, Willie, Merle. I love Neil Diamond. I love John Denver. That was my diet of what I would call radio music when I was growing up. I
Right.
didn't listen to a lot of rock and roll. I wasn't. It just didn't get me. I wanted to hear those old sad songs as a kid, and now there's so many good writers out there, like a Cody Jinks. I love doing his stuff.
Hmm.
Chris Knight is another one. Just an incredible, moving songwriter. It's just him with his acoustic guitar, and he's just playing along and telling a great story. And
Right.
hopefully, there's redemptive value in that. So I know those two are really big for me now. Of course, there's all these Sturgill Simpsons and Tyler Childers. These are all newer guys that I've listened to over time. But, it's when it comes just to sitting down and writing songs, I don't think anybody really, Ray Wiley Hubbard maybe a little bit, but he is
Yeah.
so much smarter and more intellectual than I am that I can't go on that. But one of the things he always said was, you got to write about what you know about. You know,
Yeah.
write about what you
Yeah.
know. Don't try to write about flowers if you can't see a flower in your head. So just write about what you know. Um,
And to your
that's
earlier point, I think that's where that passion is conveyed. when you do write about what you know.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
Otherwise, it's just not believable, right?
Right, absolutely. There's a saying that I was taught a long time ago that was, you can't take people place you've never been. And though that's a little overreaching, I don't know if that's exactly true. I try to look at music that way when I'm performing, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't call it performing, but when I'm playing, I play
Mm-hmm.
a lot of local bars. If I don't go out of there feeling like I don't have anything more to give you, then I really feel like I didn't do my job.
Hmm.
Because whether I'm singing my own songs or I'm singing someone else's songs, I owe it to whoever's listening to convey that song with every ounce of passion that I can give it.
Yeah.
And that's not always being, over the top. It's just being honest. And we've all got little things in our lives that have happened that you can go, well, I didn't necessarily do that, but I can relate it to this. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I tend to do with a lot of songs.
So, when a question I would have then is, when you're playing in those gigs that you're talking about at the
Mm-hmm.
bars or wherever you're playing,
Sure.
are you playing a mix of your own lyrics and then covers, or are you doing mostly covers with a few of yours?
It's probably mostly covers with a few of mine, is how it tends to go up. If I do two originals in a set, that's enough. I
Yeah.
mean, you can kind of tell when people are into that. I do some nights where I don't do any of mine because they just
Hmm.
want to hear what they want to hear, and I'll try to
Mm-hmm.
bang away and give that to them. But definitely try, and I've been trying to do it more and better, working my own stuff in there and giving a little bit of, hey, this is where I was at when I wrote this, or this. It may not be of any help to you, but you might latch on to something. So that's kind of the approach I take with it.
Knowing that, I have a request then.
Yeah.
I'm not up in I'm not up in Michigan, but if people are in that mood and they're digging it, you have the right voice in my head for Rock Salt and Nails, number one.
That's so funny. I was just been working on it last week.
Oh, you have to do that, man. Just listening to you, I'm hearing that song lyric as if it's a natural thing coming out of your face. But
Yeah, a
that,
lot of people did that.
we talk about David Allan Coe. We talked about that prior to coming
Right.
on the air.
Sure.
David
Yeah.
Allan Coe, just as an artist that you liked, and you never even called me by my name, is
Yep.
something I would imagine has to be on your playlist, right?
Everybody loves it. It's a good end of the
Yeah,
night song. You got to keep a few of those for the end of the night so that
yeah.
when they say one more, you can go, I'll do one more, but you got to sing it, and that's fine.
Well, I'll be waiting for Rock Salt and Nails from you for sure.
We can do that.
Yeah. So, okay, but along those lines of your playing
Mm.
and singing, you said earlier that you had, you do play the six string. You have separate guitars that you like to use also, I'm sure.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
but when you break out the cigar box guitar and you play the three string, do you have favorites that you like to do on the three strings, given the difference between that and having all six available?
Yeah. I like doing Ain't No Grave. That's probably my favorite song to do right now on the three string, and I just belt it out as hard as I can. And
Hmm.
then I wrote a song called Quicksand that I really enjoy doing, and people seem to enjoy that. It's got a little bit of a beat to it. And then the
Hmm.
ride, believe it or not, the ride goes really nice with a three string. So
Really?
David Allan Coe again. Yep, it's super simple. And then what was their names? I'm gonna forget it. I can't think of their names right now. I'll have to come back to it. It's gone. I
Yeah,
can't think of their names.
no worries. All right. So, all interesting and fascinating to me. I think mostly in my mind as we're talking, I'm reflecting on when I grew up in my parents' home. My mother, country music. That's what we grew up in, what we would call classic for sure.
Sure. Yeah,
Ernest Tubb, Hank Snow,
love it.
Farron Young, Conway Twitty, you name the the Waylon Jennings, Charlie Pride,
Sure.
all of them. That's what I woke up to go to school every morning during the year was that
That's a
music.
good life.
Yeah, it
That's
was a,
that's a good life.
and, and what's great is, whenever I'm on a road trip with my wife, we do one of two things. I don't know that I've ever shared this, but my wife believes she should have been a truck driver. In her case, she loves to take the long drives. We've got sons who live in, out west and then down in Florida, so Utah and Florida, and she'd prefer to drive than fly. That
Sure.
way we can talk about the agriculture. Look at the corn crops there. Look at those sorghum fields. Look at she knows them, right? And I'm thinking, I never knew this about you when we grew up in non rural farmland in the
That's
suburbs.
funny.
But she really does know all that. She really does study all that stuff. It's fascinating. Me, on
Is
the
that
other hand,
yeah?
I'm looking for the satellite classic country station so I can listen to you know everything, of course, that we just talked about. But I'm looking to hear Dwight Yoakam. I'm looking to
Yeah.
hear Toby Keith, certainly, Alan Jackson, all of what I would consider now they are in fact classic.
I was just going to say you can find it on Classic Country. That's where you find
Right,
all the
right.
'80s and '90s country.
And I love that. In fact, one day back when CDs were popular, my mother sent me two of those CD folders. You remember those?
Oh
You
yeah,
could put, you could put 100 CDs in one, and they were everything we're talking about, and then some.
yeah,
Every,
absolutely.
everybody. In fact, I had a friend, by the way, just as a sidebar, I had a friend who came off of my first tour in the Navy, came back here to St. Louis briefly, and my wife and I were in a tax office. And my friend from both middle school and high school band was his name was Kirk Capello. Kirk Capello, we always called Emerson because he loved Emerson, Lake and Palmer back in the day, and
Ooh, wow.
so he was a pianist also, and boy, he could just play anything. We knew he was destined for greatness. But we're in the tax office. Here's my friend Kirk, and Kirk is worried because he had to hurry up and get his taxes done because he had to fly out. He was playing for a local regional recording band at the time. Nick Nixon was their name, but he was asked to come be the keyboardist for uh, Barbara Mandrell at that point. Then switched over to Reba McEntire's band
Wow.
as their keyboardist, their director. Right, he set the list and all that stuff. And of course, he was on the plane that went down, and her band was all lost. You know,
Oh yeah, actually I'd forgotten that happened.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, it's just funny. All those musicians, all those classic country artists. That's who I grew up to, and so
Right.
I like those. I do like classic rock, and I'm a major Rush fan. I like the band Rush, and of course, just a just about any. I know I like music is what I like, but I like
I
music
like
with passion,
yeah.
and
That's
I'm a
that's kind of how I am. I mean,
lyrics guy. So I like the story more than even the music, even though I played trumpet for 12 years. Not great, but I played it. Marching
okay,
band, instrumental, orchestral, all that stuff.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
They but you're right. I'm all about the words of the story of the song. I really am. It's a good carrier for
Mhm.
people to help them whatever they've got to feel. I when I get to a bar, I'll tell people, "Hey, I just want to move you. You can be mad, you can be happy, you can be sad, you can hate me. I just want to make
Mm.
sure you walk away feeling something and not, huh? I didn't even know he was singing.
Hmm.
That would hurt my feelings."
Yeah. Well, that's great. And so, Dean, is there an opportunity for us to hear anything that you could play, or do you have a cigar
Uh,
box guitar handy?
I do have one handy. I got my
Nice.
Rat.
Oh,
It's
look at
my
that.
3-stringer there. Now I don't know how loud or soft that's going to be.
Can hear that.
Is that all right?
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, it was Montgomery Gentry was the band I was thinking of earlier. But
Oh, okay.
there's your Dwight Yoakam. There you go.
Wow. So maybe it's because my eyes are bad. Was that 3 or 6?
That is 3.
String.
3
Wow,
strings.
3 strings. Okay,
Yep.
so that's what sucked me into this whole rabbit hole we're in, this addiction I call it, right? Of cigar box guitars. When I heard Justin Johnson playing that 3-string post hole digger, that was electric. I knew, wow, that was amazing because it was 3 strings. I could see it, right? It's on the video.
Right.
I couldn't hear it. I heard a full instrument, right? A full 6-string, like I would think in my mind, and I stopped focusing on the number of strings and just enjoyed the music, like I did with you playing right there. I had to ask.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But it's the same way I started. You know, when I got sick, and for those who didn't know, I ended up getting COVID and pneumonia, and was put into a coma for 12 days. And then I was in a hospital bed for 60. And
Wow.
they brought me a guitar when I was in rehab. Said, here. But all that did was frustrate me, obviously, because my hands didn't work. Got home and I was just looking for something. I found Justin Johnson, same thing, and he was playing 3 strings, and I think he was "Give Me Back My Bullets" on that ammo can. And I went, I don't know how he's doing that, but I got to do one of those. And that was all it took, and I've just been I really enjoy it. I mean, I'm very thankful that I found, or these guitars found me, because I didn't really find them. But because it's given me a whole new spark, a whole new way to write, or something to sit down and just mess around to hit some, cool little riffs or something. And it's a great conversation starter when you're out playing. Everybody wants to know about it. Everybody's like, what is that? Is it a toy? No, it's not a toy. I mean, you can make it a toy, but it's not a toy. They're real. And I really enjoy it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. And couldn't agree more. It is fascinating to see, and to be seeing it is one thing, but to see it being played by someone with talent, like we just witnessed and heard in you playing a 3-string, man, that really sends it home.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
No worries. Well, Dean, one of the things I like to ask, and maybe we'll wrap up with this one, given I'm noting that we're almost a full 45 minutes in, and
Woo!
Yeah, it just flew by for me because it's fun talking to you.
Yeah, it is fun. I appreciate you.
As a builder,
yeah,
what advice would you give someone just starting out?
Don't make it complicated. It's not that complicated. It literally is a stick and a box and a bridge, a couple holes and some tuners. That's it. And you can make it as hard as you want. You really can. And that's for the craftsman. But I would say make it. Don't overcomplicate it. There is there are 1,000 videos out there on how to build one,
Right.
and reach out to a lot of the guys in the groups or girls in the groups. There are a ton of people. One thing cool about this community is people are willing to help.
Yeah.
Just willing to help, and it may not be about guitars sometimes. So it's it's a really really good group of people. Seem to be very real. So I'd encourage anybody who wants to build, just get in there and start banging away. You might mess it up. Who cares? Get another box. Go to the next one.
Right. Yeah. So that leads me to a follow-on question then.
Yeah.
Given that you love the lyrics and love to write music,
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you give to a builder player who, already is doing cover music, but think they might want to start writing their own music? What would you tell that person?
Well, the first thing is you got to write, because it's just like playing guitar. You've got to do it a lot, and you're going to write some things that are really really good, and you write some things that you go, it's not going to cut it. I'd encourage anyone. I believe everybody has songs inside them. I believe everyone has a song to sing. Maybe it's not in a way that necessarily I'm going to hear it very well, but you might hear it really well, or somebody down the street might hear it really well. So if you go, man, I got something that, this came into my head and I just got to get it down, sit down and do the work. Do the work. It's not going to do itself. Start writing the lines. You can wordsmith a little bit. You got to play around with the words, kind of make it go somewhere. Make sure you have a beginning and end, and only have one point. That's from my hermeneutics days. So have one point so they remember what you were saying, what you were talking about.
That's awesome. Do you, just out of my own curiosity, do you write the same way a blues tune is, AAB, or do you
I
like,
tend to
call and
go.
response?
I don't do much call and response. I don't do AAB.
Okay.
Mine would be more of A B C B. So it's kind of where I'm going on I notice a lot that's how I end up my rhyming sequences.
Right.
But then
Each one building upon the last.
yeah, and some will have a bridge, some won't have a bridge. It just depends where that song might want to go and how much you got to say. Sometimes you're like, I'm done talking, but the song's not done singing. So let's figure it out, And you might just turn something around, take the chorus at the beginning, or turn to the end, and put your chords in backwards so that it comes out a little bit different, but you're still in the same key. So
Yeah.
there's lots of fun tricks, lots of fun things to do.
Yeah. Well, that's great, and I think those are both fantastic tips. I appreciate your indulging me on that last question. That wasn't part of that initial.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah. So, all right, Dean, I've appreciated all 45 minutes you've given me, and I think with that we'll close this episode, and I'll do so the way I normally do. And for our audience, I will remind you, there are no rules. Just keep playing, and we'll catch up later somewhere down the road. Thanks, Dean.
You bet. Thank you.